Hello, everybody. I'll just jump right in. The human brain is a computer, and it can get bugs in a sense, ways that it doesn't work very well. And we can hack that. That's what we're here about. But we're a lot more than computers, of course. We're sensitive and sentient and sensate bodies, and we have hopes and dreams and things that matter to us. But our brain has evolved for our survival, not necessarily for our comfort or smooth experience. So this is what we'd like to hack, is that the limbic system records all experience that we've had, in particular the amygdala, and generates the experience of fear, which is the disappearance of our consciousness, causing these different emotions. Paul Ekman's list has grown to 7. This shows you we're in the dark ages of understanding emotions. And fear, by the way, is not really an emotion. It's inside of these other experiences. I like this definition of hack. Hack can mean chop into little bits or digital breaking and entering, but here we're looking to create a clever solution to the problem of humans suffering. Tapping emotional freedom technique involves tapping on these points of the face and upper chest. You can tap along if you want, but these are the things that we would tap on: emotions, events, symptoms, limiting beliefs. We might hope that in doing so, we create an energetic system. Here's the chakras, the meridians, the heart field, and the auric field. If these are open and easy, we're enjoying ourselves. The meridians is actually a fiber optic network running up and down the body, and we are tapping on the endpoints to interrupt the signals from the brain that tells us how we should feel about certain things. So it's helpful to notice how we are feeling. How's the body? How relaxed are we? What does the mind feel like? How do the thoughts feel? What emotions? What direct perceptions? And this image, for instance, could be scary or beautiful, depending on our interpretation of it. And tapping kind of gives us the option to experience it in the way that we want. This slide is left intentionally blank. So oftentimes working with clients, they are literally like halfway through, like, yeah, I don't remember why I thought this was a problem. I just can't really connect with it right now. And it's like, exactly, that's what we want. What's not blank is the child's mind when it's young, creative, imaginative, explorative, alive. And that's beautiful. And yet, every time we're overwhelmed, that overwhelm lasts a lifetime and ends up being the filter through which we experience our life. So, hacking, how do we take off that filter? How do we see what's actually present for us? And if we were to land in this human body without any past or future, we would say, oh my God, I have hands, I have feelings, I hear things, they're words, they make sense to me. This is all really quite remarkable. To return there, we want the support of all the resources, and all the resources are ultimately internal. So, for instance, if we relax and receive the smiling face, breathing into the heart, this is a good way to meet the parts of us that seem like monsters or fears. And by meeting them, we start relating to them and seeing ourselves in them. This is part of the healing process. We end up becoming the parent to these parts of ourselves. We soften, melt, these parts melt, and ultimately dissolve completely. And then we just become present to the life that we have that's quite remarkable. This might lead us into another resource. All resources, by the way, are internal. This is life and growth and support, and just one of the opportunities. So doing this work, or we might call it play, to land in a good place is really what we hope for. It's largely in the breath and in the experience, finding our opportunities to come back home. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mark. All right, Jake, if you want to take it away.
All right, here we are. Maybe Sophia has a question. She's up in front. Take it away.
Let's see, can people hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, that was really cool, and loved all of those visualizations. Those are really fun. Yeah, so I'm curious if you could give us like a really simple beginner exercise to start to get into this method. Like, how does one even begin with this?
It's generally by looking directly at our fears while tapping 2 fingers softly is sufficient 5 or 7 times on these points of the face and upper chest. It's just 5 points. These 5 points are the 5 I use. Other people use other points because there's all different meridians. Some are more convenient to tap than others. It's while tapping on them while being in a good way. So we're present, we're relaxed, we're breathing comfortably. Again, looking directly at the fear. What it does is it down regulates the fear. And you can look at it before and after. Right now, I'm this afraid or this angry. And then after tapping through 1 or 2 times, you can look at it again and see if it dropped. And it may drop a little bit, but since the effects are permanent, it's a nice thing. We'll notice other things arise. So once we tap on one thing, generally the conversation moves forward and we discover something else. So it is also an inquiry process and an exploration.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So Chris maybe has a question still, Chris? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Years ago, I saw people tapping on their wrist, which you didn't mention. My question is, has anyone tried telling people like just completely random points and see whether the location actually matters, or does the belief that it matters suffice to make it work?
Well, I am a hypnotherapist, so of course hypnosis is another thing. If we imply something will help and it's believed, then it tends to help. The heart is the most important point, and you kind of can't miss. And the head's the next most important point. And basically because the meridians run to the feet, to the heart, and the heart to the fingertips, down to the head. So, for instance, if you tap your leg, it's still going to bring you presence. It might actually have some effect. By tapping the leg, the whole body is being impacted, including the meridians. So I think there are studies, but science kind of has a hard time of pinning it down. But in doing the work, people start to notice. You can tell in talking with people. Oftentimes, I'll just have people tap the heart because that's a big part of it. So yeah, a lot to be discovered there. People are complicated. A lot of different dimensions happening. Does that make sense, Chris? Does that work for you?
Yeah. I always like to get to the mechanics of things, and a lot in your talk was beautiful metaphor, but like we don't literally have glass fiber optic channels in us, but it's a great metaphor for whatever we do have. But I want to know what we actually have.
Great. Yeah. They're certainly not glass, but they literally are fiber optics, and this has been recently discovered. They realize that it's basically a communication system, and this is the system that acupuncture uses needles. The needles create releases of endorphins that interfere with the signals that modifies the flow of what is known or thought to be light. Again, science only recently has verified that there is a system here. And that it is light is basically nonsensical to the scientific community. We don't understand how that light relates to trauma. That's largely what I study. But it is a subjective experience more than an objective science at this point.
Looks like Sonia has a question too. Mhm.
Yeah, I'm wondering, it reminds me of other types of
I'm not.
oh, sorry.
Sonia, he can't hear you.
Okay, how about here?
Are you on mute, Sonia?
No, I'm not on mute. Let me go.
I can hear Sonia just fine.
That's weird. Can you hear me
I
now?
had issues
Oh,
hearing
I see.
Sonia as well too. There she
She's
is.
connecting. I'm not hearing Sonia.
That's weird. Okay. Well, if someone wants to ask this question.
Maybe someone could relay the question.
Yeah.
I see she's connecting. I'm not getting the message.
Jake, can you hear me?
Yeah, ask
Okay.
your question.
So how does this compare, or would you say it's similar to meditation, and or like the therapy using things like MDMA that reduce the fight or flight response?
Okay, yeah. How does this relate to meditation and or therapy? What you'll find, or what many people find, is that meditation and therapy can actually trigger them more. Being with something causes us to come and understand it, but we actually want to calm down the nervous system. The meridian system is, in a sense, the messenger to the nervous system. So we interrupt the signals. And same thing with, I have clients I had a client last week where she went for EMDR and it totally triggered her and opened her up and caused her to drop back into a very dysregulated state that felt like she was going crazy. And I had her feeling good in like 20 minutes. So it's not a process of opening up, it's a process of calming down. If we do that calming down in the context of opening up, then we're able to look at things that are very challenging. Does that make sense? And I'm not sure if I can hear you, Sonia, but I'll try.
Yeah, and Jake, would you relay the thing about new experimental therapy with MDMA, using it because it helps reduce the fight or flight response?
She was asking about therapies with like MDMA and like other stuff because it reduces that kind of like, I guess, flight response.
Fight or flight.
Yeah. Wonderful, powerful results with MDMA. Not only does it reduce the response, but it actually creates the presence of the internal resources. So there's joy and there's love and there's strength. And when those internal resources are present, it's very easy to meet these challenges. Other resources include relaxation, strength, will, power, sensitivity, nourishment, love, trust, etc., acceptance.
Cool. Thank you.
I was actually curious, is like kind of the way that you ended up into this kind of like role, like if there was something that led you to this, or if it was just kind of like an organic thing?
Oh, yeah, sure. I guess many long stories, largely through medicine work, ayahuasca. Having childhood trauma, I thought ayahuasca was the best, but after doing it a whole bunch of times, I realized that it's like a heavy hammer that's not going to smooth out certain things. We need to kind of get more subtle and do the work in between ceremony, basically. It's like when you go to a therapist hoping that they'll fix you, you actually need to be the therapist working in between sessions, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely a process.